Imagine a person who has always seemed untouchable in relationships. They walk into a room and eyes follow them, not just because they are charming or confident, but because they have a way of drawing people in, making them feel seen and needed. For years, they've navigated love like a game of strategy, keeping everyone close enough to admire them, yet never letting anyone truly in. Their world revolves around attention, admiration, and the sense of being indispensable. Then one day, something unexpected happens. Someone comes along who sees them, not the persona, not the image they've built, but the real person underneath. Someone who loves them for who they truly are, flaws, fears, and all. And for the first time, they feel seen in a way they never thought possible. It is exhilarating, almost terrifying, because real love cannot be controlled, manipulated, or earned through charm alone. It simply exists, steady and unwavering. But then, as life sometimes does, that love slips away, not through betrayal or cruelty, but simply because authenticity cannot be contained. And suddenly, the person who has always relied on control and admiration is left with something they are unprepared to face: emptiness. They are stripped of the emotional fuel they have depended on for years. They are confronted with their own vulnerabilities, their unmet needs, and the reality that love cannot be commanded. For the first time, the mirror they relied on, the reflection of themselves through someone else's eyes, is gone. And in that moment, they experience a breakdown unlike any they have known before. It is a quiet, painful unraveling. Outwardly, they may appear fine, confident, even unbothered, but inside, the loss echoes with every memory, every unspoken word, and every moment they now realize cannot be recaptured. The love they lost was real, rare, and irreplaceable, and no amount of manipulation, charm, or attention can bring it back. This is the moment when a narcissist, for all their years of control and self-assurance, must finally confront the truth about themselves, and the fact that some things in life, no matter how much they try, cannot be owned. Narcissists live in a world that revolves around attention, admiration, and validation. For them, love isn't just a warm feeling. It's a mirror that reflects their value, their charm, and their sense of self-worth. When they are in a relationship with someone who genuinely loves them, that person becomes more than a partner. They are a source of what psychologists call narcissistic supply, which is essentially emotional fuel. This fuel keeps them feeling confident, in control, and important. Without it, the very foundation of how they understand themselves begins to tremble. For a narcissist, losing a partner who truly loved them isn't like losing a friend or a casual acquaintance. It feels existential. It is the sudden absence of someone who consistently reinforced their sense of identity. When that love disappears, it's not just about missing the other person. It's about losing the constant validation they relied on to feel whole. They have built much of their life and emotional stability around the reactions, attention, and approval of others, and losing that creates a vacuum. Unlike most people who can turn inward for comfort or rely on self-reflection during heartbreak, a narcissist struggles to self-soothe in any meaningful way. They have not been conditioned to find value in themselves independent of others' admiration. Their inner world is often fragile, and it is carefully constructed to hide feelings of inadequacy. When someone they genuinely loved leaves, that carefully constructed armor starts to crack. The realization that no one else may replicate the depth of care they had can hit them harder than anyone might expect. This is compounded by the fact that real love is not performative. It doesn't hinge on flattery, fear, or manipulation. Real love sees them fully, including their vulnerabilities and flaws, and still stays. It is patient, understanding, and consistent. That kind of love doesn't just give validation, it gives meaning. Losing it leaves the narcissist not only without their usual emotional fuel, but also confronting a mirror that they often avoid: the reality of their own emotional dependence. They are forced to recognize, even if subconsciously, that they relied on another human being to feel significant. In those early moments of loss, they may try to distract themselves with old tactics, charm, attention-seeking, or attempts to regain control, but these efforts are often shallow. They may notice that these methods no longer produce the same effect. The person who once provided unconditional acceptance is gone, and no other source of attention can fill that emptiness. The emotional pain they experience is real, even if it doesn't always look like conventional grief. It can manifest as irritability, obsession with the past, or attempts to replay and rewrite memories to restore their sense of control. What makes this so intense is that a narcissist often believes they are invincible in relationships. They may have gone through breakups before without feeling significant impact, but losing someone who truly loved them exposes a blind spot. The love they took for granted wasn't just about admiration, it was authentic connection. This authentic connection is rare for them because they are accustomed to relationships that revolve around surface-level charm or control rather than emotional reciprocity. Losing it can trigger profound confusion and fear. Even though they might not admit it, a narcissist often experiences a profound sense of vulnerability during this time. The person who left had penetrated the emotional defenses they usually maintain. Their loss creates a sense of emptiness that no amount of social media validation, superficial attention, or flattery from others can replace. They are forced, for the first time in many cases, to confront a reality they generally avoid, that they are not inherently complete on their own. This confrontation can be both terrifying and transformative. In some cases, it drives a narcissist to desperate measures to regain what they lost or to find new sources of supply that mimic the same validation. In other cases, it may begin a slow, painful process of realizing that they must confront their own dependence and vulnerability. Either way, losing a real, genuine love is a destabilizing experience that touches the core of who they believe they are. Even their memories of the relationship take on a heightened intensity. They may idealize moments, replay conversations, or ruminate on what went wrong, not just out of guilt, but because they are trying to reconcile the loss with the version of themselves that needs constant affirmation. The love they lost serves as a mirror that reflected not only who they are, but who they could be when truly seen. Losing it creates a dissonance between the self-image they have carefully curated and the reality of being seen for who they truly are without the ability to control it. In essence, the loss of real love is a blow that shakes a narcissist's emotional scaffolding. It's not just heartbreak, it is the removal of the very thing that allows them to feel alive, important, and complete. The absence of that emotional supply leaves them to grapple with a truth they rarely face, that their sense of self is far more fragile than they like to admit, and that real love, unlike superficial admiration, cannot be forced, manipulated, or replaced. Narcissists are people who thrive on control, not just in their careers or social circles, but especially in their personal relationships. For them, being in control isn't merely a preference. It's a fundamental part of how they feel safe and powerful in the world. They carefully orchestrate interactions, anticipate responses, and manage impressions. Losing someone they genuinely loved disrupts this sense of control in a way that is both immediate and deeply unsettling. Suddenly, the rules they've relied on no longer apply, and they are forced to face a reality they cannot manipulate or dominate. When a narcissist feels in control, they believe that they can shape outcomes to match their desires. They expect people to respond in ways that reinforce their sense of superiority or importance. Real love, however, doesn't conform to their rules. It is authentic, independent, and often beyond manipulation. The person who truly loves them may have their own boundaries, opinions, and emotional needs. When that person leaves, the narcissist is confronted with a situation they cannot command. They cannot charm, coerce, or pressure someone into staying if the connection is gone. That lack of control is profoundly destabilizing because it undermines the framework through which they understand relationships and even themselves. This loss of control is not just practical, it is deeply emotional. Narcissists often equate control with safety. When they can influence another person's feelings or reactions, they feel secure in their identity. Losing a real partner removes that safety net. They may experience anxiety, confusion, or even a kind of panic because they are suddenly operating in an emotional landscape where their usual strategies are ineffective. They are forced to face unpredictability, which they are ill-equipped to handle, because their emotional life has long depended on predictability and reinforcement from others. At first, they may try to regain control in familiar ways. They might attempt to manipulate, guilt, or charm their former partner back into compliance. They may replay past interactions, looking for leverage or trying to rewrite history in their favor. They may even engage in subtle tactics to provoke jealousy or insecurity, hoping that these strategies will bring the person back into their orbit. However, if the love they lost is genuine, these attempts often fail, which can create a profound sense of powerlessness. For someone who has rarely had to confront limitations, that realization can be devastating. The emotional impact of losing control is magnified by the narcissist's tendency to define themselves through others' responses. If someone leaves, it challenges their carefully curated self-image as irresistible, indispensable, or always in command. They may start to feel exposed, even vulnerable, which is a state they generally avoid at all costs. This vulnerability is not just about missing the other person. It is about facing an internal truth they rarely acknowledge, that they are not invincible and that others are not extensions of their will. The loss also triggers intense rumination. A narcissist may obsess over what went wrong, trying to pinpoint moments where they lost control or where the relationship slipped beyond their influence. These thoughts are rarely about understanding or empathy. They are about restoring a sense of power, even if only in their own mind. They might idealize the past or blame external circumstances, rather than confronting the deeper emotional reality that they cannot always bend love to their will. In some cases, losing control can bring temporary self-awareness. When no amount of manipulation can bring someone back, a narcissist may start to glimpse the limits of their influence. They might recognize that love is not a transaction, a reward for their behavior, or a reflection of their superiority. This realization can be uncomfortable, even painful, because it contradicts a lifetime of beliefs and coping mechanisms built around control. Externally, they may continue to present a facade of confidence and indifference, but internally, the loss of control can create intense emotional turmoil. They may feel powerless, rejected, and unsure of how to navigate a world where someone they cared for deeply cannot be guided or influenced by them. This internal conflict can trigger anger, sadness, or even a kind of existential questioning as they grapple with the fact that relationships are not always controllable, predictable, or responsive to their desires. Ultimately, losing control in the wake of real love forces a narcissist to confront something they rarely do: the limits of their power and the fragility of their constructed self-image. It is a confrontation that can be deeply destabilizing because it shakes the very framework through which they understand their relationships and, often, themselves. The experience can be intensely painful, not simply because of the loss of a partner, but because the foundation of control they depend on has been shaken, leaving them to face the stark reality that not everything in life, and certainly not love, can be owned, manipulated, or commanded. When a narcissist loses someone who truly loved them, one of the most profound consequences is that they are forced to confront themselves in ways they usually avoid. Throughout their lives, narcissists often hide behind carefully constructed personas: charming, confident, successful, untouchable. These personas are designed to deflect attention from their insecurities and to maintain a sense of superiority. In the safe space of control and admiration, they rarely have to look inward, but losing real love removes that safety net. Suddenly, there is no one left to reinforce the image they have so carefully curated, and they are faced with the uncomfortable truth of who they really are. This confrontation can be startling. For someone who has spent much of their life seeking external validation, realizing that their worth cannot simply be commanded or bought through attention is disorienting. They begin to see the cracks in the image they have presented to the world. They may notice patterns of behavior they previously ignored, like manipulation, emotional detachment, or a lack of empathy. These realizations are often uncomfortable because narcissists are not accustomed to seeing themselves without filters. Losing someone who genuinely loved them is like removing the mirror they relied on to reflect only their desired self-image. It exposes them to the parts of themselves they have long avoided. The recognition of this internal emptiness can be both painful and confusing. Narcissists have often believed that their charisma, intelligence, or status could guarantee love and admiration indefinitely. Real love, however, is not transactional. It cannot be sustained through charm or control alone. It requires authenticity, vulnerability, and reciprocity. When someone who embodies these qualities leaves, the narcissist is confronted with the reality that they may have never truly developed these qualities themselves. This realization can feel like a void, a space where their self-assurance used to reside, and it can be deeply unsettling. This process often brings an intense mix of emotions. A narcissist may feel guilt, even if they do not fully understand or acknowledge it. They may wonder if their behavior drove the other person away, even if their self-reflection is fragmented or superficial. They might also experience fear, not just of being alone, but of facing the parts of themselves that they have worked so hard to avoid. Their self-image has been largely built on the perceptions of others, so when someone leaves, it feels like their identity itself is threatened. They are forced to grapple with the fact that they may be fundamentally flawed in ways they have rarely admitted. In some cases, this confrontation sparks an internal dialogue that narcissists are not accustomed to having. They may begin asking themselves uncomfortable questions. Why did this person see through me? Why did my usual strategies fail? Why does losing this love feel so devastating when I have always relied on others for validation? These questions, while rooted in ego, represent a crack in their defenses. It is a rare moment when they are forced to consider their own vulnerabilities, emotional deficits, and the ways in which they may have contributed to the breakdown of the relationship. However, this self-confrontation is rarely straightforward. Narcissists often oscillate between denial, anger, and fleeting moments of insight. They may blame external circumstances or the other person's unreasonableness to avoid fully accepting their own responsibility. They may attempt to rewrite the story in their minds, minimizing their faults or exaggerating the other person's shortcomings. Even in these moments, though, there is an undercurrent of awareness, an acknowledgement that something profound has shifted. The love they lost was authentic, and it reflected back a version of themselves that they cannot entirely control or ignore. The intensity of this experience is heightened by the rarity of such love. Narcissists often encounter people who admire them superficially, who respond to their charm or manipulation. Real love, however, is persistent, patient, and perceptive. It sees beyond the surface and connects to the person beneath the armor. Losing someone who genuinely understood and cared for them forces the narcissist to confront the emptiness beneath the facade, the parts of themselves that have never been nurtured, the emotional skills they never developed, and the vulnerabilities they have long hidden. For some narcissists, this confrontation with self may be fleeting, pushed aside by new relationships, distractions, or attempts to regain control. For others, it can mark the beginning of a slow, uncomfortable journey toward self-awareness. Even if they are not ready or willing to fully change, the loss of real love has planted a seed of recognition. They cannot rely solely on charm, control, or attention to sustain meaningful connections. This realization, while painful, exposes the truth that real love is not a tool or a possession. It is a reflection of who they could be when they allow themselves to be seen authentically. Ultimately, losing someone who truly loved them forces a narcissist to encounter their own limitations, their emotional deficits, and the fragility of their carefully constructed self-image. It is an experience that shakes the foundation of their identity because it removes the external validation they rely on and leaves them with a mirror of their true self, a reflection they may have avoided their entire life. This confrontation is often uncomfortable, disorienting, and even frightening, but it is also one of the few moments that can offer genuine insight into their inner world and the parts of themselves that they have long neglected. When a narcissist loses someone who truly loved them, the impact on their emotional world can be profound, even if it is hidden beneath a carefully maintained exterior. On the outside, they often continue to appear confident, composed, or even indifferent. They may joke about the loss, act aloof, or try to convince others, and sometimes themselves, that they were unaffected. This external facade is familiar territory for them. It is how they navigate the world, masking vulnerability and maintaining the illusion of control. Internally, however, the story is very different. Narcissists are rarely equipped to process emotions in a deep or healthy way. When real love leaves their lives, it can trigger a torrent of feelings they do not know how to manage. Sadness, fear, anger, anxiety, and sometimes even despair. Because they have spent so much of their lives depending on others for validation, the absence of someone who truly cared can leave them feeling hollow and unmoored. The contrast between the calm exterior they present and the storm inside can be stark, and often it is confusing even for them. One of the most challenging aspects of this loss is the recognition that they cannot manipulate or charm their way back into the relationship. In past experiences, a narcissist may have used attention, charm, or subtle manipulation to maintain connections, but real love operates outside of these tactics. The person who leaves does so based on authentic emotions, not external influence. For the narcissist, this is destabilizing because it exposes a limitation they rarely confront: the inability to control everything and everyone around them. The internal reaction to this lack of control can feel overwhelming because it contradicts their long-held belief in their invincibility. As a result, the narcissist may experience a mix of confusion and obsession. They replay conversations, interactions, and moments from the relationship over and over in their mind, searching for answers or trying to make sense of what went wrong. They may idealize certain memories, exaggerating the significance of positive moments and overlooking the ways their own behavior contributed to the loss. This mental preoccupation is not always about regret in the way most people experience it. It is often an attempt to regain a sense of power over something that is now beyond their influence. Despite this mental turbulence, narcissists often maintain a polished exterior because vulnerability is threatening to them. Admitting emotional pain openly feels like weakness, and weakness is unacceptable in the narrative they have built about themselves. Instead, they may mask sadness with anger, sarcasm, or detachment. Friends, family, and even casual observers may see someone who appears largely unaffected, yet beneath the surface, there is often intense emotional upheaval. This dissonance between inner experience and outer expression can make it difficult for them to process grief in a constructive way, prolonging the emotional fallout. Part of this struggle comes from the nature of the love they have lost. Real love sees a person in their entirety, including their flaws, fears, and vulnerabilities. Losing that love is not just a loss of companionship or affection. It is a loss of connection to someone who truly understood them. For a narcissist who is used to people responding to their crafted image rather than their authentic self, This type of loss can feel particularly acute. They are confronted with the realization that someone has seen the real them and chose to leave, which can intensify feelings of emptiness, confusion, and even shame. In some cases, the internal collapse is subtle, manifesting as anxiety, irritability, or mood swings rather than overt grief. They may struggle with sleep, lose focus, or feel inexplicably restless, even if they attempt to fill the void with distractions, attention from others, or superficial interactions. The emptiness often persists. The underlying emotional impact remains because the connection they lost cannot be replicated by superficial attention or admiration. It was a bond rooted in authenticity, and nothing else can replace that kind of emotional resonance. This internal struggle also affects how they perceive themselves. Losing real love can shatter the illusion of control they have maintained over their identity. They may feel as though they are unraveling from the inside, as if the framework they rely on to stay composed is weakening. This can be terrifying for someone who has built their life around maintaining control, charm, and perceived superiority. The experience forces them to face the fragility of their emotional world, even if only subconsciously. Yet, even in the midst of this collapse, a narcissist's external behavior often continues to project stability. They may appear resilient, unbothered, or even charismatic to outsiders. This duality, the outward poise and the inward turmoil, is a defining feature of how narcissists experience emotional breakdown. The internal collapse may be profound, but it is rarely visible in conventional ways. It is a private struggle, a battle between the vulnerability they cannot express and the persona they insist on presenting to the world. Ultimately, losing someone who truly loved them forces a narcissist into an internal conflict they are not equipped to navigate easily. The facade of confidence and composure clashes with raw, unprocessed emotions, creating tension that can persist long after the relationship has ended. The experience is destabilizing, revealing the limitations of control, the depth of emotional dependence, and the fragility of the carefully constructed self-image they rely on to function in the world. When a narcissist loses someone who truly loved them, one of the most persistent struggles is their obsession with regret and idealization. Unlike typical heartbreak, where the focus is often on processing emotions and finding closure, a narcissist's mind tends to fixate on the what-ifs and the ways they can regain a sense of control over the situation. They replay the relationship repeatedly in their minds, analyzing every word, gesture, and moment, not necessarily to understand or grow, but to reconstruct it in a way that restores their ego and sense of power. This mental replay often comes with a tendency to idealize the lost love. In their imagination, the relationship may appear more perfect than it ever truly was. They remember the positive moments vividly and minimize or distort the conflicts and flaws that were present. This idealization serves a psychological purpose. It allows them to rationalize the loss while simultaneously amplifying the pain of not having control. By magnifying what they lost, they intensify the emotional impact, creating a paradox where they both crave and resent the person who left. Regret for a narcissist is often different from typical regret. It is less about reflecting on their own emotional growth or learning from mistakes, and more about lamenting the loss of what they cannot control. They may feel a sense of injustice that someone who truly cared could leave, as if the rules of admiration, attention, and loyalty they believe in were broken. This intensifies their inner turmoil because it challenges the worldview that they are entitled to affection and control, and that relationships should always conform to their expectations. This obsession with the past can manifest in various ways. They may go over old conversations or interactions, trying to find a moment they could have altered to prevent the breakup. They may dwell on compliments, shared experiences, or the moments when they felt most admired, holding on to them as proof that the love they lost was meaningful. At the same time, they may replay arguments, moments of rejection, or times they felt vulnerable, often exaggerating these in their mind to justify a sense of hurt or betrayal. The mental tug-of-war can be exhausting and consuming, leaving them stuck in a loop of reflection without resolution. One of the underlying drivers of this obsession is the wounded ego. Narcissists have spent a lifetime constructing an image of themselves as desirable, powerful, and indispensable. Losing someone who genuinely loved them threatens that self-image. The idealization of the past relationship and the regret over its end are ways to cope with this threat. By constantly revisiting what was lost, they attempt to reconcile their self-perception with the reality that they could not keep the person, which can feel deeply destabilizing. At the same time, they may experience a mixture of longing and anger. The longing comes from the rare authenticity of the love they lost. It was not transactional or superficial. It saw them fully, flaws and all, and stayed. The anger comes from the sense of helplessness. Despite their efforts, they could not control the situation, and they could not force the love to continue on their terms. This combination of emotions often leaves them in a state of confusion, where they are unsure whether to idealize, mourn, or rationalize the loss.